Quentin Hall found himself working deep into the night at his office. Not entirely because of an excessive workload. The actual cause was more personal and distressing. A mere 3 days prior, Quentin had engaged in a heated argument with his son, Liam, concerning Liam's recent romantic involvement with a woman 10 years his senior. With his extensive insight into life and finances, Quentin was doubtful, suspecting that the woman might be more attracted to Liam's wealth than to Liam as a person. Quentin's worldview, heavily influenced by financial considerations, made it difficult for him to accept that this woman's feelings for his son were authentic. This family conflict was intensified by a lingering sadness. 15 years ago, Liam lost his mother, Barbara, to a severe illness. An event that profoundly impacted him since he was only 7 at the time. Despite Quentin's desperate efforts and ample financial means, no treatment could save her. The doctors had declared that only a miracle could have altered Barbara's destiny, leaving a young Liam shattered and fostering a sense of disillusionment towards his father, whom he believed could solve anything with money. As Liam matured, he ceased to overtly blame his father. Yet a full understanding and mutual rapport often remained elusive between them. The revelation of Liam's relationship prompted Quentin to engage in a frank dialogue with his son. He delicately voiced his concerns, questioning Liam's knowledge of his partner's history and her extended period of being single. Feeling cornered, Liam defensively asserted that Jessica was a decent person, hinting at his father's elitist perspectives, which only escalated the tension in their conversation. Despite Liam's sharp tone, Quentin endeavored to maintain a serene discussion, emphasizing his respect for his son's decisions while advising caution against hasty commitments. Clearly enamored and defensive, Liam insisted on making his own choices, recognizing his father's worries but opting to trust his emotions over practical counsel. In these moments, Quentin recognized the intricacies of his relationship with Liam and the challenges of offering parental guidance when past traumas and personal prejudices obstructed true understanding. Watching his son leave for the office, Quentin paused briefly before reaching for the phone. With a firm tone, he greeted, "Hello, Henry. Are you available? I need appearance," suggesting that the occupants were likely well off. Quentin, feeling a mix of apprehension and determination, rang the doorbell, prepared for the potentially uncomfortable conversation ahead. On the other end of the phone was Henry, the experienced head of security at the bank owned by Quentin. Henry, who had known Quentin for many years, immediately understood the seriousness of the request. "I'll take care of it, Mr. Hall," he confidently assured. "I'll make sure your son remains unaware of the watchful eyes protecting him." Comforted by the assurance, Quentin ended the call. Being accustomed to managing every aspect of his life, especially those concerning his family, he felt a strong need to safeguard his only child, Liam. Knowing that Liam planned to visit Jessica and likely spend the night there heightened Quentin's protective instincts. Following the call, Quentin stood up from his desk to stretch his sore muscles and headed to the kitchen for a much-needed cup of coffee, anticipating another extended evening of work. As he prepared his coffee, he went to dispose of some trash and noticed an unusual item conspicuously placed in the bin as if it were meant to be found. Closer inspection revealed a pregnancy test with 2 distinct lines indicating a positive result, causing Quentin's heart to sink. This revelation caught Quentin off guard. He suspected that Jessica had intentionally become pregnant, likely due to their age difference. The prospect of becoming a grandfather didn't scare the banker, instead. He was concerned that his son's naivety might have left him vulnerable to manipulation. As he sipped his coffee, Quentin's mind raced through various scenarios. Determined to address the situation, he decided to have a frank discussion with Jessica, believing it to be the correct course of action. The next morning, after a sleepless night, Quentin immediately contacted Henry as soon as he woke up, confident that Henry would have gathered some useful insights. Quentin relied on the efficiency of his bank and its staff to support him during this challenging time. Remarkably adept in his role, Henry provided the banker with a crucial piece of information: the address of Liam's fiancée, located in a respectable neighborhood. The area's appearance led Quentin to conclude that the residents were financially stable. Without delay, Quentin proceeded to the address he had obtained from the bank's head of security, covered in elegant ivy hanging from the walls. The terrace provided a picturesque setting as Quentin parked his car at the curb and approached the front door. With his mind swirling with strategies on how to begin the conversation and which points to emphasize, he pressed the doorbell, lost in thought. The sound of footsteps grew increasingly louder as they neared the door. As it opened, Quentin braced himself to face anyone from a beauty pageant winner to a modest city library worker. To his surprise, he was greeted by a slender, attractive woman, causing him to involuntarily recoil in astonishment. "Jessica, is it really you? How can this be?" Quentin murmured, his voice tinged with disbelief and shock, which brought an unexpected grin to her face. "Yes, Quentin. As you can see, it's me," she replied, her smile widening. Quentin was astounded, recognizing the woman before him with whom he had a past relationship, though it had been years since they last saw each other. Memories of their spontaneous, yet unserious relationship flooded his mind. Despite his deep-seated feelings for his late wife and the complexities of moving on, he was taken aback. To his further astonishment, Quentin learned that Jessica was pregnant with his son's child. This news left him utterly perplexed. Meanwhile, Jessica, seemingly undisturbed by the tension, welcomed him inside and offered him a cup of coffee. "How long have you and my son been together?" Quentin finally broke the silence as they settled into the living room. 7 months. "You have a wonderful son." Quite unlike his father, Jessica answered, her tone light yet pointed, hinting at Quentin's role in ending their past relationship. Still shocked by the news and suspecting that Jessica might be seeking revenge through this situation, Quentin was about to delve deeper when the front door opened once more. Liam entered, his face marked by a tense expression. "Dad, what are you doing here?" he inquired, trying to keep his emotions in check. "It's not what you think, son. I just came in," Quentin began, attempting to clarify his sudden visit and alleviate the noticeable tension. The encounter was bound to happen, especially since Quentin's fiancée had recently returned. As her discussion about the paleo diet was abruptly halted by Quentin, now fully cognizant of the circumstances, Jessica sharply cut in. "Stop it, Quentin. He's aware of everything." Quentin looked towards his son, a surge of understanding overwhelming him as he realized his fiancée was speaking the truth. As Quentin grappled with the unfolding scenario, his thoughts swirled into a chaotic mix of past experiences and present realities. forming a formidable and stressful moment. This placed Quentin in a sensitive situation. He experienced a pang of guilt for his initial reaction towards Jessica. Yet he was also embarrassed that his son had accidentally witnessed an uncomfortable exchange with his past girlfriend. "There's no point in trying to change my mind, our decision is final," Liam declared firmly. Quentin trusted his son's judgment, knowing well that Liam valued honesty and integrity highly, which only added layers to the dilemma involving Jessica. Quentin, however, unlike his more innocent son, was aware of Jessica's deeper ambitions. Her long-held aspiration to marry into wealth for financial security was the underlying reason for their previous breakup. Realizing that a civil discussion was now impossible, Quentin said his goodbyes and walked out to the street, his cheeks burning with shame from the incident. "No, Jessica. There's no second chance for you. If it didn't work out with me, trying now with my son won't change things," Quentin thought bitterly as he drove through the bustling traffic to the bank. Once there, he pondered his next steps. In a decisive action, Quentin froze all his son's bank accounts and credit cards. He also instructed the security guard to move Liam's car to a paid parking spot and bring the keys to him. Quentin was aware that these measures would probably provoke Liam's anger, but he felt he had no other option. As expected, this action led to an intense argument between father and son, ending with Liam storming off into the fading evening light. "It's okay, son. Now we'll see who's right," Quentin whispered, a tear escaping as he struggled with the pain of his son's refusal to acknowledge Jessica's true motives. Quentin chose to let the situation simmer down. Over the next month, the head of bank security ran a detailed background check on Jessica, uncovering a wealth of information about her. Quentin viewed his son's fiancée differently after uncovering shocking details that even a seasoned banker like himself hadn't foreseen. Feeling a sense of validation, Quentin praised his security chief. "Henry. Excellent work. Henry. You've done a truly outstanding job. I'll make sure you receive a bonus for this," he said, closing the folder with a renewed conviction that his actions were justified. Just as Quentin was about to leave his boss's office, his son Liam walked in, visibly distressed. The sadness in Liam's eyes and his every gesture betrayed his inner turmoil. With a regretful tone, Liam admitted to his father, "I'm sorry, Dad. I was wrong. Jessica and I aren't right for each other." Quentin approached his son, placing a comforting arm around Liam's shoulders. Over the past month, he had watched Liam strive to support himself and his fiancée by taking on various jobs, including driving taxis, working as a loader, and distributing flyers. Despite these efforts, Liam's modest earnings were insufficient to maintain Jessica's accustomed affluent lifestyle. As Quentin listened to his son's confessions, he revealed a painful truth: she deceived you. She was never pregnant. Jessica is aware that she can't have children. This revelation shifted Liam's perspective, making Jessica, who once seemed like the perfect match, far less desirable. Quentin's main concern was his son's well-being, urging him to steer clear of a serious mistake. That day, Quentin and Liam had a deep conversation in the office, which led to a mutual understanding. Following their discussion, Liam cut all ties with Jessica and confronted her about her deceit. Once faced with the truth, Jessica realized she had been outmaneuvered and was left with nothing. In the aftermath, Liam joined his father at the bank and became Quentin's trusted assistant. Eventually, Liam met someone truly compatible, and their relationship delighted both friends and family. Watching the happy couple, Quentin couldn't resist expressing his enthusiasm to babysit his future grandchildren, playfully remarking, "The more, the merrier."
After listening to this tale, what are your impressions? We'd love to hear from you in the comments section below. Your insights are valuable to us. Now, we have another engaging story. Let's proceed to the next one. In a world where both academic and social expectations are exceptionally high, the pressure to comply can be intense. This was clearly demonstrated when I faced harsh scrutiny and judgment over a family-related decision. My daughter married a man named Ryan who, unknown to most, came from a background quite different from what many presumed. I had initially believed that Ryan came from a wealthy, well-educated family, especially as he himself was a successful doctor and a medical school graduate. This perception was crucial to me, as I had myself been judged for taking an extra year to start at a prestigious university. However, the truth was quite different. Ryan's brother, Ted, had only finished middle school. This revelation was a shock to me and quite embarrassing, considering the social norms I was used to. At the wedding reception, this fact became a topic of mockery among some guests. When I accidentally lifted a nameplate at the table, I saw it labeled Ted as a middle school loser in bold, scrawled marker. A secretary even made a cold remark about how such connections could potentially harm their company's reputation. Initially, the in-laws laughed it off, but as the reality of my son-in-law's family background surfaced, their laughter turned to concern. Ted, now 36, is employed at a manufacturing company started by his father's friend and has led a life quite distinct from his brother Ryan. Despite their different educational achievements, both brothers have faced tremendous adversity since losing their parents in a tragic car accident 20 years ago. At that time, Ted was a high school sophomore, and Ryan was just starting middle school, left without a provider. They had to depend on their modest savings for survival, which eventually dwindled. This imposed a significant financial and emotional burden on the brothers. Ted tried to keep up appearances and encouraged Ryan not to worry about their finances, even as he made personal sacrifices to reduce costs wherever possible. Ryan, who had been an avid baseball player since his youth, had to abandon his dreams and focus on a more stable future, leading him to a career in medicine. His commitment and diligence eventually led him to become a doctor, where he performs numerous life-saving surgeries daily. At a university hospital, one particular surgery resulted in the meeting between the surgeon and Hillary Thompson, the daughter of a mid-sized company's president, after he rescued her family from a tragic accident. This pivotal moment swiftly led to their marriage. The narrative of the two brothers, who navigated the sudden death of their parents and the complexities of societal norms and personal hurdles, highlights the resilience and varied journeys people can embark on. Despite facing initial judgments and assumptions, when Ryan contemplated leaving the baseball club due to concerns over rising costs for equipment and travel for games, I strongly urged him to continue. To alleviate his concerns, I showed him our bank balance and carefully calculated our upcoming expenses for utilities, food, and other miscellaneous items, assuring him that our standard of living wouldn't be compromised immediately. Reluctantly, Ryan decided to keep playing, adopting a more economical approach to spending. At that time, however, I was keeping two secrets from Ryan. The first was that the bank statement I showed him was from a time when our parents were still alive, providing a financial safety cushion. Since their demise, our financial outlook had worsened considerably, and I anticipated that we might face severe financial difficulties soon, possibly requiring welfare support in a worst-case scenario. The second secret involved my personal sacrifice. I had decided to drop out of high school and forego any college ambitions to start working immediately. I contacted one of our father's friends who owned a manufacturing plant, explained our dire circumstances, and secured employment. He welcomed me warmly, and I have been working diligently there since. When Ryan eventually found out that I had left school to work, he felt upset and confronted me about why I hadn't been transparent about our financial struggles when he discussed leaving baseball. He felt betrayed that while he continued playing and studying, I had sacrificed my education. I apologized for not sharing the financial difficulties with him, explaining that if he had known the truth, he might have quit baseball. which I believed would have been detrimental to him at that time. Even though future expenses for baseball seemed minimal, just replacing socks, spikes, and covering transportation for games, I argued that these savings would not significantly affect our overall financial state. It was important for him to continue doing what he enjoyed. Despite my efforts to persuade him, Ryan was skeptical for some time. Eventually, he understood that there were limited options and agreed to continue with some reluctance at a career planning session at his school, which I attended as his guardian. I firmly declared that he would start working right after middle school graduation. Initially taken aback, the teacher came to grasp our financial situation but still supported Ryan's decision. Ryan had always been encouraged to seek further education due to available tuition waivers and scholarships. Despite this, he was initially unsure. His teacher, aware of Ryan's exceptional status as the top student locally, stressed that attending a prestigious university was essential and settling for less would undermine his abilities. At home, I reassured Ryan not to fret over tuition fees, as his outstanding grades could secure him a lucrative job immediately post-college. Nevertheless, Ryan was hesitant to pursue higher education if it meant going alone, particularly since I had dismissed the idea of university. Even with scholarships, he feared the financial strain would be overwhelming. I comforted him by mentioning my positive job reviews at the factory and the expected salary increase, which could mitigate any monetary gaps. In our discussion, Ryan inadvertently disclosed his wish to go to college, a feeling he had previously kept to himself. His openness was charming but led to a brief confusion where he thought I was criticizing him. I clarified that I was only acknowledging his genuine emotions, not seeking any leverage. I suggested treating the tuition as a loan that Ryan could repay once he began working post-graduation. This idea seemed to ease his concerns about the financial impact. Ryan worried about the length of college and its effects on our already modest lifestyle, exacerbated by our father's recent passing. I reassured him that I was coping well and even found some pleasure in managing our stringent budget. Likening it to playing a game, persuaded by our conversation, Ryan chose to advance his education and successfully cleared the high school entrance examination. He aimed for a renowned medical school, known for its rigorous entry criteria. Embracing the challenge, Ryan passed the admissions process, but we've managed to find strength in each other and in our aspirations, I responded, maintaining a composed demeanor. Ryan succeeded in passing his entrance exams on his initial attempt, graduated from university on schedule, and consistently excelled in his academics. Following his residency, Ryan flourished as a skilled surgeon, achieving his dream of entering the medical field. His transformation from a tentative prospective student to a proficient medical professional was characterized by unwavering resolve, strong family backing, and a firm grasp of his financial obligations and choices. Ryan's choice to become a trauma surgeon was profoundly shaped by our parents' tragic death in an accident. The sudden loss drove him to a profession where he could make a substantial impact. His ambition was to save as many lives as he could. He often mused, "If I can save one person, I can positively affect many lives. I am committed to this cause." When I became aware of Ryan's motivations, I was heartened to see his determination and clarity had not wavered. Had Ryan given up his university ambitions back then, he wouldn't be facing the promising future he now enjoyed. I felt a deep sense of pride for having encouraged him to persevere with his studies. Ryan's fiancée, Hillary, fully understood these motivations and was profoundly touched by his commitment to his patients, which spurred her to initiate a relationship with him. I was delighted that Hillary, who hailed from a distinguished family, appreciated Ryan not just for his professional achievements but was also attracted to his intrinsic qualities, which ultimately led to their marriage. "I've heard a lot about you too. You've worked hard in the absence of your parents," she once remarked, trying to stay humble. I replied, "That's too generous. I simply did what was necessary to survive." Yet, I could see that Hillary was a well-grounded individual who connected with us on a fundamental level. I admired Ryan for choosing such an exceptional partner and was confident that this marriage would bring joy to Ryan, a celebration I was determined to support wholeheartedly. However, I secretly harbored a concern. When I first met Hillary, I also had the opportunity to meet her parents at a dinner at the hotel where the couple planned their wedding reception. Hillary's father, Frank Thompson, a 61-year-old dynamic company president, introduced himself as a representative of our family. "We've heard about your parents from Hillary. It must have been tough," her father remarked. Yes, it was challenging. Reflecting on it now, it doesn't seem entirely negative, I responded, demonstrating my resiliency. You are still quite young, yet you show promise, much like Ryan's brother, he remarked, possibly unaware of the significance of his comparison. Being compared to him as challenging, I confessed. Not from modesty, in truth, Ryan was a tough standard to meet, nonetheless. Having a brother who excelled at a top university, graduating with honors, and now shines as a beacon of hope in the surgical department of a university hospital, our family background might appear impressive. What is your current occupation? He asked. I am employed at the factory, I said. At that time, the factory was receiving support from our father. Initially, their expressions were amiable. But as I continued, their faces grew clouded with confusion. They seemed baffled as I mentioned my direct involvement at the factory. A factory, surely, you mean you manage operations from the corporate office? One queried. No, that's not the case. Our company isn't solely about corporate duties. I typically work on site at the factory, I clarified. Really, working in a factory? Why would you say something so unusual? They questioned, their tone full of disbelief. Unusual? You say, may I inquire which university you attended? They pressed further. Well, after our parents' accident, I was still in high school, and it seemed unlikely that their savings would cover my education until graduation. Thus, I dropped out and started working at the factory, I detailed. They paused momentarily, glancing at Ryan and Hillary, who were being helped by the reception staff with their outfits, before turning back to me with serious expressions. Ted, based on your story, you didn't even complete high school. So you are essentially a middle school graduate, they concluded sharply. Yes, that's correct. Had we known, we wouldn't have allowed this marriage to proceed. Perhaps we should inform Hillary now and discuss it with the family. No, the date for the ceremony is already set. It's too late to cancel. After all, Ryan still makes an ideal doctor, one of them rationalized. The issue lies only on the side, I murmured. What are you implying? Was there an issue? It's not just a minor problem, it's a significant one, they countered. Listen, our family runs a business. And while some of us own other companies and some are department heads at large corporations, all of us take pride in having graduated from prestigious universities. They belong to prestigious universities, they said with a tone that conveyed both pride and irritation. Truly, it's baffling how you fail to grasp our point, they continued, their frustration evident due to my lack of prestigious educational qualifications. I realized they looked down on my educational history, and I was taken aback by such a sudden shift in their demeanor, leaving me unable to retort effectively. In our family, even a child who fails an entrance exam and has to repeat a year is considered inferior. You might not understand, but in our circles, having a background that raises questions about one's capabilities is deeply humiliating, they further explained. It's difficult to address that, in a society where you're ridiculed for merely taking an extra year to get into a top university. The idea of people learning that I allowed my daughter to marry a man whose brother didn't even complete high school is terrifying, they expressed their dismay. I had presumed that Ryan came from a prosperous family where all the siblings had successfully graduated from university, even after their parents had died. Ryan's notable background had led me to disregard any research into his brother. I never thought you were a middle school dropout, they stated. Clearly disappointed and distressed by this discovery. Oh, how mortifying it is to face such demeaning remarks. I was completely at a loss for words. However, now that the matter has escalated to this degree, we must clarify to the relatives that your ties to Ryan are negligible, merely a formal relationship. Nothing more. Please understand and cease any claims that you raised Ryan like a parent, as it sounds excessively presumptive. How can you respond so defiantly to such a reasonable request? Once related, such individuals often become a nuisance, incessantly seeking financial help, meddling in inheritance matters, and engaging in unthinkable actions. She accused me in the same manner. Let me be clear. Stay away from Ryan in the future. Meeting Hillary is absolutely out of the question. And you must not bring any debt or investment proposals to our family. If you breach this agreement, you will be disowned immediately, and we will pursue legal measures to ensure your permanent exclusion. I wish this were merely a nightmare, that these weren't the words of Ryan's prospective family members. If anyone else were in my shoes, they might explode after enduring such insults. However, rather than seeking retribution for the humiliation I endured, holding the same concerns as I do. There's no need to escalate things further, I reassured her. Alyssa smiled understandingly, acknowledging that maintaining peace was our priority, especially today at Ryan and Hillary's wedding. I had resolved not to let negative emotions overshadow this joyful occasion. Just remember, I'm here if you need to talk or if things change, Alyssa offered, her support unwavering, recalling the joyful expressions on Ryan and Hillary's faces. I knew that reacting with hostility would only harm their joy, which was the last thing I intended to do. Rest assured, I won't bring up financial matters with you, Ryan, or Hillary ever again. At the moment, I'll accept your assurances, but should I detect anything questionable, I will not hesitate to take action. Additionally, regardless of your opinions, Ryan and I have stood by each other throughout life's challenges. I will not cut ties with him, nor will I avoid meeting him. My stance on this is non-negotiable. How dare you approach this as if it were a threat? Honey, you should speak to a lawyer immediately, I thought to myself when my mother-in-law was about to scold me. Just then, the sound of Ryan and Hillary returning from their costume fitting interrupted her. Upon hearing them, both my father-in-law and mother-in-law cast a disdainful look my way but swiftly adopted a friendly facade as they greeted Ryan and Hillary, Frank, his wife, and I all kept our cool in front of Ryan and Hillary, and the moment passed without incident. Since that day up to the wedding today, I have not encountered Frank and his wife again. I chose not to disclose their behavior to Ryan or Hillary. At today's reception, I confided only in my girlfriend, Alyssa Hansen, who accompanied me. She is a striking woman of 28 whom I am considering for marriage. Given her familiarity with Ryan, I thought it best that she attend. Initially, I had planned to keep Frank and his wife's offensive remarks to myself. However, Alyssa, gifted with keen insight and intelligence, quickly sensed the underlying tension in me. Feeling my concealed urge to share my troubles, she gently encouraged me to open up, and I found myself grateful for her empathetic presence. So, are you planning to confront those offensive in-laws of yours today? It might upset the ceremony, she asked. Despite the risk of causing a disturbance, I decided against confronting them. Oh, that's disappointing. I thought you brought me along as your support for that very reason, she joked lightly, shrugging off the idea of escalating the situation legally. No one has approached me yet, and since Ryan shares my sentiments, there's no reason to stir trouble, I replied. The repercussions of leaving such a significant event early. Reflecting on the day's proceedings, I acknowledged that despite the unsettling prank, the ceremony itself celebrated love and union, which were far more important than fleeting discomfort. Maybe it's best to rise above this petty situation, I mused, recognizing that Alyssa's presence not only offered a sense of protection but also a calming influence. We had arrived at the ceremony with the intent to sit discreetly on the groom's side. Ryan, an aspiring surgeon, was tying the knot with Hillary, the daughter of the president, in a grand ceremony that drew many attendees, to minimize potential conflicts. We chose seats away from my in-laws. Nevertheless, I spotted Frank and his wife on their side of the venue and made a conscious effort to avoid making eye contact with them. They're the in-laws you mentioned earlier, aren't they? They seem to be sending some harsh looks our way ever since we arrived, Alyssa whispered, vigilantly watching them. As long as this doesn't escalate beyond a few scoffs, I'm okay. Today is about celebrating Ryan and Hillary, and I don't want minor issues to overshadow this joyous event, I replied, determined to concentrate on the celebration. Setting up our nameplate, which was initially placed face down, a typical indication at such events that the seats were reserved but not permanently, was shocking. Instead of my name, the plate bore the words "High School Dropout," crudely written in red marker. Only my in-laws would resort to such a childish stunt. My eyes quickly shifted towards their seats, catching the self-satisfied expression of a middle-aged couple, confirming my suspicions. At this lively family event, seemingly orchestrated by my in-laws, I was regrettably the focus for all the wrong reasons. My educational background, a topic that my in-laws had frequently discussed with relatives, now seemed to amuse them, as the older guests, prompted by my in-laws, erupted in laughter. It was clear they had eagerly awaited my reaction to their mockery. Later in the event, when I accidentally knocked over a plate, their laughter intensified. My mother-in-law appeared particularly amused, clapping her hands joyfully amidst the loud crowd. The other guests seemed indifferent to their behavior, which only heightened my sense of alienation. Overwhelmed and feeling isolated, I resolved to leave the venue discreetly, realizing that any confrontation would only extend my humiliation. As I prepared to depart, I pondered the implications of leaving early from such an important event. Upon reflecting on the day's events, I realized that despite the unpleasant prank, the ceremony was a celebration of love and commitment, values far more significant than momentary discomfort. Perhaps it's best to rise above this petty situation, I considered, appreciating that Alyssa's presence provided not only protection but also a comforting influence. The possibility that this was just the start of their provocations and that more could follow was a disheartening realization, particularly as I was there to honor Ryan, a beloved family member. Just as I was about to leave, Alyssa, who recognized my discontent yet reminded me of the significance of the occasion, caught up with me. She encouraged me to remain for the sake of Ryan, emphasizing that my departure would deeply upset him. Comforted by Alyssa's reassuring words and her composed presence, I made my way back to my seat, making a deliberate effort to avoid any interaction with my in-laws. As the ceremony got underway, the bride and groom made their entrance to resounding cheers, as the speeches began with notable guests and progressed to family, friends and relatives. I braced myself for my moment to speak. Ryan had personally requested that I give a speech, and I had thoroughly prepared, committing every word of my thoughtful speech to memory. Yet, as the family speeches were drawing to a close, I realized I hadn't been called upon to speak. Concerned, I spoke to a staff member and was met with a startling revelation. It turned out that just before the ceremony, my father-in-law's relatives had asked to have my speech cancelled, citing their own unpreparedness. Observing my in-laws, I saw them whispering and trying to suppress their laughter, which confirmed my suspicions of their continued ridicule. This insight, though hurtful, made clear the extent of their disregard for my feelings and reinforced my determination to stay composed. For the sake of Ryan, having reached my limit, I discreetly moved towards the edge of the venue where my in-laws were gathered, being careful not to disrupt the ongoing speeches. Alyssa, noticing my upset, quietly followed, clearly opting to offer her support silently. As I approached, I could sense the clear hostility from the cold looks of my in-laws. "What do you think you're doing, taking out my speech without any discussion?" one of them sharply accused. "That's precisely my question to you. Did you forget the agreement we had?" I replied, puzzled by their aggressive tone. "Oh, please, don't pretend to be unaware. It's just like you to play dumb and then voice endless complaints. It's nothing more than a typical tactic of a con artist, clearly. We need to take legal measures to keep someone like you, a questionable middle school dropout, out of our family matters," another said bitterly, brushing off their contemptuous remarks. I inquired, "So you admit to deliberately trying to silence me?" "Absolutely. Once we realized you intended to speak, it was only logical for us to step in. Just think of the shame if someone with your history had spoken at my daughter's important event. As her parent, it's my responsibility to protect her from potential humiliation," they asserted. At this, not just my mother-in-law but also other family members from my father-in-law's side erupted in mocking laughter. "Why should you be spared our disdain? Did you really expect to be treated as an equal? Remember your place, you're merely trash," they ridiculed. Suppressing my anger, I was about to reply when Alyssa, who had been quiet until now, intervened. "Mr. President, isn't it reasonable for a business to distance itself from such rude partners? I see no reason to hold back." "And what right do you have to meddle in our family issues?" they retorted sharply. "I am simply offering a professional perspective to the president. I wasn't speaking to you directly," Alyssa stated composedly. "President, what are you referring to?" they mocked. "Yes, Ted Brown, the gentleman right here, has just been named the president of our company," Alyssa clarified, showing my father-in-law the president's welcome page on her smartphone. He skeptically took the phone, his face growing stern as he viewed the page. "What have you done, dear? This is our company's top client. This isn't some trivial prank. Verify it on your own device," Alyssa recommended. Visibly shaken, my father-in-law pulled out his smartphone and accessed my company's page. His complexion turned ashen when he saw my image featured on the president's welcome page. "This is ridiculous. There has to be some error," he whispered, struggling to accept what he saw. At a recent family gathering, my father-in-law had excused himself suddenly to make a phone call. It appeared he was contacting a subordinate to check the accuracy of the information I had provided. Just last month, a dear friend of my father, who had previously held the president role at the local factory, had asked me to assume his position. This friend, who had been a significant supporter, had recently fallen ill and urgently needed a successor. Having left high school to work at the factory nearly 2 decades ago, I had developed a profound knowledge of its operations. Surpassing anyone else's understanding, my years of financial difficulty inspired me to meticulously examine the financial intricacies of the factory, providing me with profound insights into its business operations and management tactics. Having devoted 2 decades to working on the factory floor, I had not only gained the trust and respect of my peers as a potential leader but also as an integral member of their community. The outgoing president affirmed his trust in me, declaring that he saw no one more suitable to succeed him. Honored by his belief in my capabilities, I accepted the role. Around the same time, Alyssa, a recent college graduate, came on board as the president's secretary. Upon my assumption of the presidency, she naturally transitioned to being my secretary. Notably, our relationship had evolved into a romantic one a few months earlier, which added a significant dimension to our professional partnership. Even after becoming president, I maintained my involvement on the factory floor, staying closely connected to the day-to-day operations, while Alyssa handled legal and administrative responsibilities. Despite her title remaining secretary, her contributions were more akin to those of a vice president. Alyssa once pointed out that our company was robust enough to operate independently, suggesting the possibility of disassociating from my father-in-law's company if needed. This prompted a crucial discussion about the ramifications of such a decision. I informed my father-in-law that we had various suppliers for parts and could reallocate orders to other businesses if necessary. Nonetheless, I stressed the importance of not rushing our decisions and proposed a thorough discussion, possibly involving lawyers, to ensure a cautious strategy. In response to my prudent approach, my father-in-law accused me of engaging in deceptive practices, calling into question the integrity of our operations. Despite his severe accusations, I remained calm, asserting that I had always respected individuals regardless of their background or education, and emphasized the importance of maintaining respectful dialogue. The situation escalated beyond my expectations, turning a routine meeting into a confrontation that exposed the true nature of those involved. Since our initial interaction to this day, I continually ponder whether you can truly offer a sincere apology for all the disparaging remarks you have directed at me. You've committed to never repeating such actions. Correct? I'm not forcing you. However, if you choose to apologize to your family, despite not having completed middle school, I'll regard it as sincere. The decision to apologize is yours alone. In that charged moment, my father-in-law's focus shifted uneasily between his family and his colleagues, caught between upholding his professional respect and his familial honor. I was baffled by the extreme lengths to which the family's honor needed to be protected, rather than apologizing. You opted to renegotiate our business agreement, offering price concessions to salvage the deal. This is a reasonable proposal for both parties, right? You asked. Alyssa, silent until then, firmly announced that once the existing orders were fulfilled, our company would no longer engage with yours. She advised you to find alternative business partners. Your reaction to her statement was one of shock and fury. As you continued to criticize my background and choices, I attempted to leave. Suddenly, I felt a fierce tug at my collar and heard insults hurled at me. My father-in-law had lost his temper and seized me from behind, almost causing me to lose my balance. Just then, the grip on my collar loosened. When I turned around, I saw Alyssa had stepped in. With her judo skills, sharpened since her childhood and supported by a black belt, she had easily neutralized him by manipulating the arm that had grabbed me. For Alyssa, handling an older man unaware of martial arts was simple. She calmly told the onlookers that he had tried to attack us and escorted him out, his arm still in her hold. Looking around, I could see the family in shock. My mother-in-law was at a loss for words, while others merely gaped, struggling to grasp what had just occurred. I returned to my seat without further ado. Shortly after, Alyssa came back, seemingly unfazed by the incident. She mentioned that he had caused a commotion outside too, but she had left him with the staff. She felt confident that the situation would not escalate to involve law enforcement. This episode sharply underscored the intense and sometimes perilous dynamics of personal and business relationships, leaving everyone present and witnesses in a state of shocked silence. At one corner of the room, at the event space, there was a momentary disruption. However, the ceremony proceeded on schedule, much to my relief. Fortunately, The staff was able to accommodate me by finding a spot for my speech at the last minute, which I had thoroughly memorized. Alyssa, ever sharp, quipped, "Lucky that all your memorization didn't go to waste." Regarding subsequent events, I decided that my company would cease all business interactions with Frank's firm. This choice resulted in a noticeable decline in his business performance due to the loss of a major client, a concern that no longer pertained to me. Unfazed, Frank later barged into my office uninvited, causing a commotion as he demanded to renegotiate our deal with the president. Thankfully, my team was well prepared and handled the situation in my absence. I was briefed about it later. Alyssa remarked regretfully that if she had been there, she would have made Frank think twice before pulling such a stunt. It was probably better for Frank that she wasn't there. Subsequently, the newlyweds, Ryan and Hillary, were informed about the chaos Frank and his family had caused at the venue. Despite Frank and his relatives' attempts to conceal their antagonistic actions and animosity towards Hillary, the disturbance he created left them unable to hide their behavior, ironically due to Frank's own actions. When Hillary learned the truth, she tearfully apologized for her family's behavior. I reassured her that our relationship would not be impacted going forward, which seemed to comfort her. I later found out that she had taken decisive legal steps to distance herself from her family, perhaps influenced by their own litigious nature. Honestly, I felt a sense of relief knowing that Ryan and Hillary had effectively separated themselves from their family issues. A lot has happened, but now it seems it's my turn to step up. Alyssa is indeed stunning, and I can only imagine how beautiful she would look in a wedding dress. Lately, it has been Ryan and his wife urging me to settle down more than Alyssa herself. If I remain silent, I might just find an impatient Alyssa taking matters into her own hands, which has me contemplating the best way to naturally proceed. As I continue to fully commit to my duties as president, I find that there is minimal time available for personal affairs. Do you have any thoughts after hearing the above two stories? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Tell us in the comments section. That's all for today's story. Please subscribe and give a thumbs up. See you next time.